country. Our government is now talking tough when it comes to foreign criminals. I've got to tell you, though, they're not speaking half as tough as Donald Trump was. He's basically now putting the army on the streets. What do you think to that? And also, speaking of tough talking...
What we're talking about today is a matter of national security.
Yeah, Reform UK essentially saying that we have a national emergency when it comes to the safety of women and children. They reckon that they are the party to fix that. Are they? And you remember this, it was only from about 11 weeks ago.
On the question of costs, the cost of this is an average per year cost of £100 million, £101 million a year is the average cost. The net overall cost is therefore £3.4 billion overall.
Yeah, well, anyway, it turns out that the actual cost of the Chagos Not Such a Deal is 10 times that amount, £35 billion. OK. Well, we've got all of that and lots more. Keeping me company, my panel tonight. I've got Zia Youssef, the head of Dirge at Reform UK, and Barry Gardner, the Labour MP for Brent West. But before we get stuck in, let's cross and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening, it's 1 minute past 6. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. A fresh government effort to deport foreign national offenders is the sort of stuff they should have been doing on day one. That's according to the leader of the Conservative Party. Kemi Badenoch made the comments as more foreign criminals will be deported before their appeals are heard, as the Home Office adds 15 new countries to its Deport Now, Appeal Later scheme. Canada, India and Australia are among the new additions, taking the total to 23, with the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper vowing to stop offenders exploiting our immigration system and fast-track removals. Also today, Kemi Badenoch has suggested migrants currently housed in hotels could instead be held in camps, as the number of English Channel small boat crossings nears 50,000 since Sir Keir Starmer took office. President Donald Trump says that he will tell Vladimir Putin to end his war in Ukraine during his meeting with the Russian leader on Friday. The president described Friday's summit as a feel-out meeting. He added that some land swapping will happen for the good of both Ukraine and Russia. The president went on to say that he wants to set up a meeting between Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, saying that he would try to get some territory back for Ukraine. President Trump said it was not up to him to make a deal.
But I'll be speaking to Zelensky. The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me. I'll be there if they need, but I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap, because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody, to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both.
Well, the president made those comments during a press conference where he announced that he's deploying National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. as part of his plan to, quote, rescue the capital city from crime. The president declared it Liberation Day for Washington, D.C., saying the city will be cleared up very quickly. During the president's announcement, members of the Free DC organisation held a rally outside the White House against the measures. 3 teenagers have been arrested over the murder of a man at a seaside resort. Kent police said the man in his 40s died after being attacked during an altercation on the Isle of Sheppey on the North Kent coast. A police cordon has been set up in a large clearing behind the beach in the Laysdown-on-Sea resort. 2 boys aged 14 and 15 and a 16-year-old girl are being questioned over his murder. And detectives investigating a major fire which destroyed a historic former hotel in Worcestershire have arrested 2 girls. West Mercia Police said that the 13 and 14-year-old had both been released on bail as part of its inquiry into the damage caused to the Grade 2 listed Raven Hotel in Droitwich Spa. Hereford and Worcester Fire and Rescue Service said 8 fire engines and multiple specialist vehicles were deployed to tackle the fire, which did not lead to any casualties but totally destroyed the building. Officers remain at the scene, the force said, and are asking the public to stay away from the area at this time. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More from me in an hour.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3418 and €1.1559. The price of gold is £2,493.83 per ounce. And the FTSE 100's closed the day at 9,129 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you very much for that, and hello, good evening to each and every single one of you. My name's Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co, keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel, Zia Youssef, Head of Dirge for Reform UK, and Barry Gardner, Labour MP for Brent West. Good evening, gents. You're both very welcome tonight.
Thank you.
As are each and every single one of you at home. What, ladies and gents, is on your mind tonight? Join the conversation in all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay, or of course you can tweet or you can X me. I do start the programme with some very sad news. This is my last GB News Dewbs & Co ever. Nobody knows that yet. Yes, Barry, thank you for your shock and horror. I'll tell you what, do you know why? Because I watched Donald Trump's press conference this afternoon. I was cheering at my screen, ladies and gents. That mister is not messing around, and I thought to myself, this country is in such a mess. I'm going to pack my bags, I'm going to give Bev Turner a run for her money, and I'm going to head off to Trump's America. So much safer, I imagine, it would feel over there with a leader of the country talking as tough as he seems to be. Unfortunately, I've got to tell you, I'm only joking. I'm staying put. I couldn't leave this country, could I? Sorry, Barry, to upset you in that way. But I'm going absolutely nowhere. And if you don't know what on earth I'm talking about, you soon will. A little bit later on in the programme when I show you some of Donald Trump's press announcements. But for now, let's remain in the UK, shall we? Because the government has been talking tough when it comes to foreign criminals. Let's take a watch.
Well, we've already increased the deportation of foreign criminals by 14% since the election. We're determined to go further. We know that too often cases are held up by dragged-out appeals, and that's why we're now trebling the number of countries where there will be deport first and then appeal later. We think that is the right thing to do. We will go further, and we're also making it easier to start the deportation process from the moment of sentencing as well. Because, frankly, when people come to the UK, they should abide by the laws, and the rules need to be respected and enforced.
Let's look at some of the details as well. A tweet from the Ministry of Justice earlier on today. Basically telling us, again, you can see that foreign criminals, they are going to force deportation, telling us about the percentage of criminals as well in our prison, which are foreign nationals. Let me ask you this before I open it up to the panel, because when I'm hearing conversations about deporting foreign criminals, the thing that I always hear is people talking about the need for justice. Well, if you were a victim of a crime, how would you feel? Would you want that offender, if he was a foreign national, to be in prison? Or would it be punishment enough for you, actually, you know what, you get the boot out of this country? Or would you want a bit of a mixture of the two? Tell me your thoughts on this. But Barry Gardner, very tough talking. Yeah. But before we get too much into it, Priti Patel, she's having absolutely none of this. She's been sharing open letters that the Labour Party actually produced, where they've actively campaigned to stop the deportations of foreign criminals. She's been sharing open letter that I've got on the screen. You won't be able to read that. You'll have to take my word for it, where both the Justice Secretary and Keir Starmer signed that letter that was to stop the deportations back to Jamaica. So is this a genuine, authentic belief, or is this just a bit of a political play?
Well, look, I don't know about the Jamaica letter, and when that was done, I assume a number of years ago in, another time, and it was a particular situation. But what we do know is that so far the government has deported 5,200 foreign criminals. They have been removed. That is, as Yvette Cooper said, a 14% uplift on what the Conservatives had managed to do. And this new arrangement, which has expanded the scheme now to 23 countries, 15 new countries that we'll be deporting criminals to, I think it bodes well. I take your point that somebody may say, well, if they've committed a serious offence, I'd like to know that their only punishment was not to be put out of the country. I'd like to know they were serving time somewhere. And I think that is an issue that we need to talk about, because actually prison is about penalties, of course, it's about punishment, but it's also supposed to be about reform. And what you're doing is you're simply getting rid of the problem and putting it elsewhere. I'd like to see them serve time as well as being deported, but deportation first, absolutely right. Don't let them make that appeal. And then I would like to see them serve time in their country of origin.
Would you? You see, I wouldn't really care. My primary choice of punishment would be get out, quite frankly. That would make me feel satisfied if I was the victim of crime. What about you? Anyway, Zia, your thoughts?
Well, we need to deport not just the foreign criminals in this country, we need to deport the 1.2 million plus illegal migrants who are also criminals, ultimately. The clue's in the name, in the terminology, illegal migrant. And, you know, Barry seems to be particularly pleased about 5,000 people being, quote, deported. Almost all of those, Barry, are voluntary, not enforced.
No, he's on about the criminals.
They're not voluntary, actually. So that was wrong.
So that you're talking about 5,000. There are north of 1.2 million illegal migrants in this country. There's more than 10,000 foreign nationals languishing in our jails. And all we're seeing from Labour at the moment is an attempt to win a news cycle and to get in front of British voters this concept of, you know, deport now, appeal later. The proof that it's just purely for the visuals is the fact that they've gone after something that looks like a DFS slogan. The reality is not only do we need to deport people quickly, we need to prevent them having any form of appeal other than mistaken identity, frankly. And here's the kicker on all of this. This has been law for years, Barry. The reality is all that's going to happen is you're going to, and mark my words, we'll probably talk about this in the coming weeks, you're going to see injunctions from the legal industrial complex that are going to stop those deportations from happening because of the ECHR. The ECHR prevents these deportations from happening. So forget about the appeal. Most of the preventions and the frustrations of deportations occurs as a result of injunctions from these lawyers, and that's going to continue to happen. So all this is an attempt to win a news cycle. We're not going to see any change.
Well, Zia, you've said two things that seem to be contradictory. On the one hand, you say, well, this has been the law for ages. In fact, it hasn't, because it was in June that the legislation and the rules were changed to make sure that these extra countries were brought into the mix and that the proportion of the sentence
the law
was
around
reduced.
deporting
and
people,
then,
the law around
just
deporting criminals immediately has been around for years, but gets frustrated by the ECHR.
And then you said, but of course, the problem is that it's illegal under the ECHR. It either is legal or it isn't legal. The point is we've passed legislation to make it easier to deport these criminals. That, I think, is a good thing. The proof, of course, absolutely right, will be let's see what happens. If another 5,200 criminals are being deported from this country, I think you and I can sit around this table and say, well, it's a good thing.
But to Zia's point, the challenge that you've got, many people watching this will also be shouting at their screens. Many people will feel that whilst we remain within the ECHR, all of these ridiculous appeal grounds that are, I mean, it's got to the point, Barry, where it is actually quite laughable now, where the grounds that people are getting their appeals granted on. Many people will be shouting at their screens that they feel that there is an ideological disconnect between the Labour Party and the mechanics actually required to truly resolve this, which is essentially, ultimately, to leave the ECHR.
Well, see, Michelle, I don't think it's between the Labour Party. I think what it is we may have justices in this country who think that the right to eat chicken nuggets is a human right. And that, I think, we can all hold our head in our hands and say that is not what the ECHR was supposed to be about. That, of course, those sorts of individual cases make a mockery of what is going on here. But I think what the Labour government is clear about, what the Labour government is clear about,
because of the ECHR, isn't it?
Well, actually, I think what we're showing here is that there's ways where the government can actually intervene, change the secondary legislation, make sure then that we get on the front foot and can do this before those judges get the chance to in my view, misinterpret the legislation.
But the time's not an issue because they'll just go for an emergency injunction. That's what they do. So long as the United Kingdom remains part of the ECHR and remains bound by the chicken nugget clause and all of these other things, the reality is, well, it's all the chicken nugget clause we're talking about are things to the right to a private life and all of those things, right? And as you seem to be admitting, you have justices who are over-interpreting these things. I think we're in agreement about that. The only way, so long as you want to continue to have an independent judiciary, Barry, the only way to solve this problem is to, frankly, not just leave the ECHR, but disapply all of the other aspects of international treaties that prevent these deportations from happening. And I want to stress here, we've narrowed the scope of the deportation conversation to around the 10,000 or so foreign criminals inside our jails. We should be talking about the 1.2 million people plus who are already here. Those people need to be deported as well.
What do you think to that, Herman? Do answer that question because I'm fascinated by it. What would justice mean to you? Would it mean, currently, like we're saying, these foreign criminals, they are sent to prison in this country behind bars? Does that feel good to you? Would you want a bit of everything, a bit of justice here and then a bit of sent home? Or are you in my camp, which actually I wouldn't really be bothered about them being in prison in this country because I wouldn't want to, as a taxpayer, be funding said criminal. I would want them straight out the door, thank you very much. Which camp are you in? Get in touch and tell me your thoughts on that. Coming up after the break, we've got so much that we need to discuss together tonight. I want to look at Donald Trump, his approach. I also want to talk about Reform UK. They're saying we've got an emergency when it comes to the safety of women and girls in this country. I'll see you in a few minutes.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say it week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Michelle Dewberry, Zia Youssef and Barry Gardner. Lots of you getting in touch. I can tell you that one about this deport now and appeal later situation. Madeline, you say, Michelle, when these people, when these burnt migrants are arriving and they're getting their biometrics checked out, you're asking, are they cross-checked with any match from criminals who have apparently been deported? I don't know the answer to that. Do you know the answer to that?
The biometric data checks are precisely that. They do make sure that these people are not criminals, yes.
So when these guys are coming in on these definitely not small boats, all of these fingerprints are then cross-checked with our criminal database?
With the criminal database.
Right, well, there you go, Madeline.
That's why we do biometric tests.
Right, well, there you go. Does that answer your point? Richard has said, Michelle, at the end of the day, yes, people should be deported, but you would like to see them serve prison sentences in their own country. I've got to tell you that I'm not actually sure that that would be something that we would be able to enforce. I don't know, who knows what the future holds. Michelle, yeah, I've got to say that view, actually, Maurice, you're saying the same thing. Lots of you are getting in touch saying, actually, yes, you would want them deported, but sent to a prison overseas. Susan says, Michelle, if somebody is a criminal, they should have no right at all to any appeals on anything. Not sure how far I'd get with that one, Susan, but I like your thinking. Anyway, look, talking about people appealing and getting themselves into a spot of bother, we've had many people, more than 500 people at the camp so far, arrested this weekend for supporting Palestine Action, which you'll know now is prescribed as a terror group. Look, Zia, your thoughts on this? Was this the right move or not?
Well, the group Palestine Action has been prescribed has become a prescribed organisation. And so everybody who went to that protest and shouted these slogans and waved those placards knew exactly what they were doing. And so, yes, you know, many people have been arrested as a result. Well, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? This organisation broke into RAF Bryce Norton, vandalised aircraft, RAF aircraft, and caused tens of millions of pounds, most likely, of damage, right? So the fact is, all of these people, and some of them should certainly know better, based on the news reports I've read, what's the alternative? To say we're going to prescribe this organisation, but we're not going to enforce the law. One of the reasons why this country is going to hell in a handbasket, Michelle, is because we have had a police system and a justice system that has been unwilling to enforce the law. So, yes, it was the right thing to do.
Barry?
Yes, I think it was the right thing to do. So a rare moment of agreement with Sia here. I think it was interesting, I think this morning it was that Yvette Cooper said that some people perhaps didn't know the full extent of what Palestine Action had done and referenced certain things that were still not in the public domain because of future court cases that were being brought against Palestine Action, and specifically mentioned violence and violence against the person in those, as well as the vandalism that Zia talked about. Look, I understand why people want to protest about what is happening in Gaza. That I think we should all be horrified by. But I do think that supporting a terrorist organisation, a banned terrorist organisation, is simply wrong. And the police were right to enforce the law. And I think it's interesting that sometimes, you know, on GB News, we talk about how there is a differential policing, that it's the left-wing protesters that are not enforced against, whereas right-wing protesters are. And I think this was a good example where actually the police acted without fear or favour or bias and did their job.
I've got to say, I've seen people calling these arrested people heroes. Do you share that sentiment or not? Because I do feel like there is this kind of, and it is understandable, when people are told that babies have been murdered and all the rest of it, it is a normal human instinct, isn't it, to have empathy and sympathy and all the rest of it, and certainly to want that to stop if indeed that is what's happening. But this notion, though, that actually, if you believe the cause to be so bad, you should therefore be able to be justified in doing whatever you want this time today, going on protest, next time, who knows, whatever. Do you have any truck with that or not?
Well, if you take that to its logical conclusion, then you end up with ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So no. And yes, you do get people who go to protests with the express intention of being arrested. I mean, look at Just Stop Oil and all of the social issues and how much they impugn people's day-to-day lives. So, look, again, there is absolutely no doubt that in this country, the right to protest is sacrosanct. And if people want to go and protest around Gaza and Palestine and Israel, they have every right to do that, clearly. But it was crystal clear that Palestine Action was a proscribed organisation, and so it is. So I say it again, the majority of the people who have been arrested, from what I can tell from news reports, really should know better, some of whom I do think went with the express intention of being arrested because in their social circles that provides them with some kind of social currency. At the end of the day, we have to have the law applied as it is.
I think perhaps, I think you're right. People did go there with the express intention of being arrested.
Not everybody,
but many people did. I think it's interesting to note that these are people, many of them in their 60s and 70s, many of them the sort of people that you would say, well, these aren't terrorists. And I think the tragedy is that they have confused their support, their justified support for the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine. They've confused that with the support for a banned terrorist organisation.
Once an organisation invades a military base of one of His Majesty's military bases, I think it's absolutely right that it gets prescribed. I put it to you that every single person arrested on that day would have known that had happened, and so they deserve it.
Lynette says, Michelle, these people definitely shouldn't have been arrested because the whole thing shouldn't have been prescribed in the first place. These people are just disgusted with seeing the government-supported actions over in Gaza. She says seeing elderly people being dragged away was absolutely disgusting. Lynette, Barry just made that point. What's it got to do with the price of fish that these people were elderly people? No one seems to care when you look at these asylum protesters, the demographic of the people there. Everyone just bandishes them with the same brush. So how come then on these protests it all matters about the age and demographic of these people? Enlighten me. After the break, I want to talk about Reform UK, talking about women and girls and their safety or lack of. And I also want to talk to you about Donald Trump. He, ladies and gents, is not messing around.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow, and across many parts of southern Europe, there will be some showery rain around, but plenty of sunshine. And I think the biggest talking point is the exceptional heat. Some very warm air over North Africa has spread northwards into parts of Spain, Portugal, and it's going to push into France and Germany as well. Coastal spots are going to be, well, very warm, but it's inland areas where temperatures are going to be exceptionally high, both by day and by night. Plenty of sunshine, like I said, however.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's certainly going to feel like summer. Some hot temperatures on their way. This could lead to a thunderstorm risk overnight and also some quite warm and muggy nights. And the reason for the increase in temperatures, it's all to do with high pressure situated across Europe, dragging in a southeasterly flow. So we're bringing in that warm air from mainland Europe. But at times, this could lead to some thundery showers, particularly across the southwest, moving into Wales and parts of central England as we head through the overnight period. Any outbreaks of rain across Scotland too, moving their way northeastwards, gradually moving through towards the Northern Isles during the early hours of the morning. But it is going to be a warm night, quite muggy at times, particularly across the south. Some lows not really pushing much past 18 to 19 degrees Celsius. Then into the morning, generally across southern areas, any cloud potential for thundery showers will have cleared. So quite a bright start here, but across Wales, central and northern parts of England, plenty of clouds, still a risk of some thundery showers, and similar across Northern Ireland too. Once again, across Scotland, it should be mostly bright, but we still have these lingering outbreaks of rain across the Northern Isles that won't really clear until later in the morning. And if we do see any thundery showers across northern parts of England, it could turn quite gusty for a time, but they'll eventually clear away into the afternoon. And that means plenty of blue skies to come, but another day of those hot temperatures, widely pushing into the 30s. And this time, not just across southeastern areas, parts of the Midlands too, we'll start to see temperatures pushing into the mid-30s. And even across Scotland, northern parts of England, widely in the mid-20s. So plenty of blue skies, hot sunshine, so do take care if you are out and about. Then through into the evening, we'll see another repeat of condition, less in the way of showers, but plenty of clear skies, and it is going to be another warm and muggy night to come. So still another risk of showers later Wednesday, but otherwise plenty of sunshine and a continuation of the warm temperatures.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Motorists on the A66 eastbound in Cumbria face congestion due to a collision, with one lane closed. The A19 northbound exit slip to the A67 in Stockton-on-Tees is delayed by a broken down vehicle. Norfolk's A11 northbound has one lane shut due to a collision. Northamptonshire's A14 westbound reports 40-minute delays. The M49 southbound near Bristol is congested, causing a 15-minute delay. In Kent, the M20 eastbound exit slip at Junction 9 is partially shut from a breakdown. And on the trains, expect disruptions on cross-country and East Midlands railway services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock tonight on Dewbs & Co. Alongside me, I've got Zia Youssef and Barry Gardner. I can tell you now, that Palestine Action one, that's really got you guys going. I've got people in the camp that are basically saying, you know, those people, they just don't want innocent babies and children to be killed. One of my other viewers says, just jail them all. I mean, obviously, you've got to have due process in this country, and there'll be many people shouting out the word alleged when people, of course, are talking about that RAF base and all the rest of it. Anyway, look, we've got a lot that we need to get through tonight. So without further ado, Reform UK, they've held another press conference today. Of course, they've got their strategy of fighting crime. Today, the focus was on the safety of women and girls. Let's take a listen, shall we, to one of the Reform councillors, Lyndon Kemkaran. Let's take a listen.
There are two recent phenomena that have, without a doubt, caused women and girls to be less safe. The first, as Andrea just referenced, is the belief that's been actively and at times aggressively pushed on us by politicians, the media, and our state institutions, that biological men pretending to be women should be allowed into female-only single-sex spaces. The second is, of course, illegal migration. The invasion, and I use the word invasion because that is exactly what it is, of hundreds and thousands of undocumented men who've come from countries where violence is the norm and women are not even second-class citizens.
Well, Zia, this is your party. It was quite a lengthy press conference we heard from different members of Reform UK, all with that same message, though, that, you know what, situation when it comes to the safety of women and girls is now at a critical point. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, as you heard at the press conference, we live in a country now, sadly, the United Kingdom, where many women and girls don't feel safe walking home from school or walking home from the station in the evenings. And that is a travesty. And one of the reasons, not the only, but one of the key reasons is the mass importation of people into this country from countries where exactly as you heard there, violence, particularly against women, is much more preponderant than it is in the UK. And this is not some subjective aspersion that Reform is casting. It is borne out by official data. So, for example, when we talk about men from Afghanistan are 22 times more likely to be convicted of a sex offence than a native British person.
I've seen a lot of pushback to that stat.
A lot of people push back on it, but it's because it makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable. Nobody is satisfactorily. That is a statistically significant sample. So unless you're willing to unless you're able to falsify that data, and again, that is official data from the government, then I'm afraid there's no truck in those disputations. The reality is we have had, for now, probably a decade, we've had the importation, particularly coming by small boat, right, where the majority of the people coming across the channel illegally are men, north of 75–80% in any given year. Most of them are of military age, and the majority of those men, Michelle, come from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Iraq, Iran, countries which don't have a great track record in terms of their relationship with Britain, but also countries where, again, violence against women is sadly much, much more preponderant in those countries than they are here. And you can draw a straight line between that and the grooming gangs and the cover-up that happened around that. So I want to stress, again, Michelle, this is not casting aspersions subjectively. These assessments that we have made, and us calling this a national security emergency, and the brilliant women, by the way, I want to say, I think Reform now has the most formidable women in British politics. The reason we are making this point is because it is true, it is borne out by the data, and it's time somebody did something about this.
Right, Gardner?
Look, I'll take Nigel Farage's position on violence on women and girls seriously when he and his MPs in Parliament no longer vote against legislation to tackle stalking, legislation to tackle harassment, legislation to tackle upskirting, legislation to tackle spiking of drinks, posting personal photos of women without their consent online, when he takes seriously the online safety of young people and votes to ensure that they cannot get material on suicide or self-harm or eating disorders or pornography. He has voted against all such legislation in Parliament. So the idea that he has a track record to be proud of in this, I think, is profoundly mistaken. And the same goes for every single Reform MP. They voted against that legislation.
Labour do this a lot. They point to Reform MPs voting against a bill that had something in there about what Barry just talked about, but it was bundled in, Barry. You couldn't select.
No, it wasn't. No, it was
bundled in.
That.
Well, let's take the Online Safety Act. You just talked about women's online safety. Online Safety Act, which, as we speak, is censoring. Let's talk about protecting women from predators, for example.
Let's talk about voting against
it is censoring on social media Katie Lamb's speech, where she went through the cover-up and excoriated those responsible in terms of the grooming gangs. Censored Elon Musk's retweet of an actual transcript from a court case with regards to the grooming gangs. Or, you know, I could go as far as to say, you know, forums on Reddit which are helping young people quit smoking, for example. These things are being censored. Footage of protests in Leeds outside a migrant hotel, those are being censored. So this notion, and so, yes, that's why Reform is deadly against such bills. But the reality is, here's what matters, Barry. Under Keir Starmer, if you look at year-to-date, we're closing in on 30,000 illegal migrants crossing the channel this year to-date. That isn't down. Well, you can laugh, Barry, but that is not down. It's not down a lot. It's up. It is at record numbers. It is at record numbers. We don't know anything about these people.
I don't laugh at that, Zia.
Well, you did just laugh. That's exactly what you did. You just laughed.
The fact that you always change the subject back to the illegal migrants.
But we're talking. That's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about women's safety as a result of importing people from these countries.
And Nigel Farage's MPs voting against measures to stop stalking, harassment, upskirting, spiking of drinks, personal photographs being posted online. That's what they voted against, and you want to justify it.
So, Barry, let's do this.
Stop talking over each other, please.
So let's do this. Let's say you're right, and that all of those bills that Reform MPs voted against were absolutely amazing and should have passed. We're talking about 5 MPs, we're talking about 4 MPs at any given point. So those bills were going to pass anyway. You have a walloping majority. So why is it then that women feel so unsafe? Why is it that small boat crossings from these countries we're talking about are at all-time high?
Against them.
Well, precisely for the reason that you haven't solved anything. None of these bills that you're talking about, that the Reform MPs voted against, despite them being so amazing, have achieved anything despite passing. Explain to me why, despite the fact those bills passed, small boat crossings are at all-time highs and people in this country feel so unsafe, particularly women. Please explain that to me.
Well, I can explain to you that actually the number of arrests and prosecutions for rape are going up, and that is as a result of what we're doing. the crimes that
what you're saying is rapes are going up.
No, we're saying the prosecutions for them are, because as you well know, prosecution under the Conservatives was 2% of all reported rapes. It's important that those people are prosecuted and put away in prison.
Agreed.
And that's what you lot have voted against.
Barry,
you
then why is rape up year on year? Sexual assault is up year on year. Shoplifting is up year on year. All of these numbers are going up, despite the fact that there's magical legislation that Reform MPs voted against.
You voted against the measures to make shoplifting a triable either way offence, which meant that if somebody had shoplifted once,
and Barry, did the legislation pass despite us voting against it?
If somebody commits 16 different elements of shoplifting in their crime.
Did the legislation pass?
We passed it,
right.
But
so
you
why is
didn't
shoplifting
support
up?
it.
Why is shoplifting still going up? Why? If you walk into so many stores, if you go into a pharmacy these days,
why did you vote against it?
They're locking up retailing. Well, Barry, you've still not answered.
What is it that you like about men being able to post photos of women naked in sexually compromising positions online? Your members of Parliament.
It takes a lot of gall. It takes a lot of gall as a Labour MP to sit here and claim that you are in favour of protecting women, when again you've left our borders undefended. Small boat crossings are up at all-time levels. And again, I want to repeat: rape is up, sexual assault is up. These things continue to go up. Women do not feel safe, which is why there's so much coverage around the press conference that we did today. And again, I want to go back to the point. It's not just you. It's sort of become this trope now that Labour MPs and cabinet ministers pull out and go, "Oh, Reform voted against this amazing legislation." Well, the legislation passed anyway, and the country's continuing to get worse at an accelerating pace, which would suggest us voting against those bills was probably a darn good thing, Barry.
I remember.
So you think it's a darn good thing that your members of Parliament voted against measures to stop stalking and harassment, upskirting and spiking of drinks.
Barry,
thanks very much.
Barry, we're living in a country. We're living in a country. We're living in a country.
And I'll put it
we're living in a country where a foreign man
rapes
leader of
a reform.
Where a foreign man, where a reform,
excuse me. Stop talking over each other, because at home people will be turning down their hearing aids, won't you? You'll be turning your volume down, thinking there's something matter. You can't. No one can hear anything when we're all talking over each other. I've got to tell you that I think this is a bit disingenuous. If someone votes against a bill as a collective, that doesn't mean to say that they support and condone the things that you suggest. So if someone votes against an entirety of a bill, that doesn't mean that they are pro-women getting spiked. That doesn't mean that they are pro-girls having their vaginas photographed up their skirts. And people do this all the time. They used to do it with Christopher Chirp. I always remember that. He voted against some upskirting stuff. So for years, well, for a long time, he was known as the guy that was pro-upskirting. It was absolute nonsense, because he used to sit there and say, I voted against it because we already have the laws in this country to prevent that. As a woman, I find it really disingenuous to suggest that certain MPs would like me to be sexually assaulted or spiked or something because they didn't support the entirety of a debate. I just think it's not great political.
You're absolutely right that the way Parliament works, bills contain a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will vote against them on that basis. But actually, GB News has in the past said, why was it that Labour MPs voted against the proposals that they put forward, which were about the grooming gangs, when actually even voting for them would not have had, even voting for that amendment would have done nothing. So two can play that game.
I know, but
I'm not playing that game. I'm referring specifically because in this instance, they could have put down an amendment which welcomed those elements of the bill but disagreed with certain other parts. They didn't.
Which, given that we're a tiny fraction right now, because of the way the system works, of the MPs in Westminster, would have been a complete waste of time. But let's also be clear, as Michelle said, everything you just described is already illegal in this country. I just want to finish the point that you had a 13-year-old girl who was raped and the man was given a 7-year sentence and let out after 2.5 years. The problem is not the legislation, Barry. The problem is we need more prison places, we need a police force that arrests criminals, we need mandatory minimum sentences, and people need to serve the entirety of those sentences.
Who vote the way they tell the public they think.
Well,
yours didn't.
What do you think to all of this at home? Get in touch, join the conversation, all the usual ways. There's lots that we need to discuss. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, Barry Gardner and Zia Youssef. Now, the Chagos deal, we've spoken about this often, haven't we? Let's just remind ourselves, about 11 weeks ago, Keir Starmer telling us all how much it would cost.
On the question of costs, the cost of this is an average per year cost of £100 million, £101 million a year is the average cost. The net overall cost is therefore £3.4 billion overall. That's over the 99 years. That is, as I mentioned a moment ago, the average 100 million per year is about the same or slightly less than the running cost of an aircraft carrier minus the aircraft.
Right, we'll take that number and times it by 10 and add a little bit for good measure. And that, basically, ladies and gents, is the amount of money that is actually going to cost. Kemi Badenoch says, we've revealed Labour's deal to surrender the Chagos Islands will cost that £35 billion. Starmer, she says, betrayed public trust by misrepresenting the real cost, which will fund tax cuts in Mauritius. Now, tax rises are coming to pay for this nonsense. When Labour negotiates, Britain loses. Barry Gardner?
You've got lies, you've got damn lies, and you've got statistics, Michelle. And quite honestly, I do not understand all the stuff that's gone on here. I've given information that it says that they applied nominal terms and then they applied the inflation to it to get back to the figure. I've no idea what that means. You know very well I was against the Chagos deal from the beginning because actually on other grounds, on the grounds of the importance of those the marine protected area in the Indian Ocean territories. But as to how much it costs, quite honestly, I'm none the wiser because it seems to me that they make up the figures as they go along.
See, Yousef?
Well, you don't need to be an expert accountant to understand that what the Freedom of Information request uncovered, Michelle, was that the amount that it was going to cost in nominal terms, i.e. without any accounting trickery, that was put to the Prime Minister originally was £34.7 billion. And then the civil service were told to go and do this and to go and do this and, you know, to try and bring the number down using all kinds of accounting trickery. Yeah. Forget about all of that. All you need to know is that the Prime Minister was told this is going to cost £34.7 billion. £34.7 billion. We've given up sovereign territory for no reason at all, other than some obscure foreign court that has absolutely no jurisdiction as far as reform is concerned over this country, no ability to enforce. And we're constantly telling British people, Michelle, there's no money left. Right, when it comes to our veterans, when it comes to a utterly broken NHS, when it comes to our education system, the fact that 15-year-old children in Wales, Michelle, with the Senate elections coming up next year is particularly relevant. 15-year-olds in Wales achieve educationally at a level below the OECD average. Below the level, by the way, some countries that we send millions of pounds of aid to. We are betraying. There are politicians in this country now for decades have consistently betrayed the very people who they are swear an oath to serve. Reform will flip all of this on its head. Reform will rip this awful deal up. When Nigel's the Prime Minister, the only consideration he will have when making any decision will be what is in the interest of the British people. If you use that sort of principle, you wouldn't have this sort of thing would not have gotten off the ground. I want to say one last thing. As much as it was Keir Starmer who signed this thing, it was James Cleverly and the Conservative Party that did 5 rounds of negotiation. So all of that nonsense from Kemi Badenoch needs to be dismissed on its face.
I do say all the time that I do feel like I live in a clown world, ladies and gents. I will never be able to get my head around the fact that we voluntarily decided to do this deal based on advisory judgments. Anyway, look, Donald Trump, let's take a listen to him quickly.
Deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. It's time for dramatic action. We're going to do the same thing over here. It's going to be a very safe city very soon. We're not looking to take years, because a lot of people die in years. Entire neighborhoods are now under emergency curfews. Just this past weekend, gunfire went through, and you saw that the Navy Yard. I saw it this morning. They saw that they fought back against law. See, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them, because it's the only language they understand.
I mean, I've got to tell you, you can watch that whole press conference back on GB News online. I found it absolutely staggering. I found myself sitting there thinking to myself, do you know what? We need a leader like that in this country, someone who's really not going to mess around. He's going to grab hold of the matter. He doesn't care about using politically correct language at all. He was talking, of course, about I'm not going to mess around for years doing all this stuff, because at the end of the day, when things take years, how many lives are lost? I've got to tell you, I think Keir Starmer could learn a thing or two from Donald Trump.
Well, look, I'm glad that they're cracking down on crime, but what puzzles me, we were just talking about lies, damn lies and statistics, violent crime in D.C., in Washington, D.C., is actually at a 30-year low. Not only that, it's actually 26% lower this year than it was the year before. So I don't understand why President Trump now is saying that this is it's worse than Bogota, he said.
20 seconds, yeah.
what we need in this country, we don't have a National Guard, but we have a police force. What we need is a police that are incentivized to do their jobs, arrest criminals, and we need enough prison space to put them in jail. And we need to make sure that we have laws that leave judges no choice but to sentence people appropriately for their crimes. So let's do this. Let's arrest criminals and put them in jail. That's what reform will do.
At the top of the show, I told you I was resigning. It was my last ever show because I was moving to America. I was only kidding. Tony, you said you've never seen your wife neck a glass of vino so fast. She was so upset. Oh, no, you don't need to get upset. Ladies and gents, I'm going nowhere. We've got so much stuff that we need to fix in this country, and we're going to do it together. But for now, thanks, panel. Thanks to all of you. I'll see you tomorrow. Night-night.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The fourth heat wave of the summer is well underway, turning quite warm and muggy overnight, which could lead to a risk of thunder across parts of England and Wales. But for the majority, it should remain mostly settled. That's all thanks to high pressure situated to the east of the country, but where we see this frontal system lie across the far north of Scotland. More cloud here, some outbreaks of rain eventually pushing northeastwards into the Northern Isles. But it's this area across the south slowly edging its way northeastwards across Wales and central parts of England through the early hours of the morning. This is a chance where we could potentially hear some rumbles of thunder overnight. But tonight it is set to be particularly warm and muggy, especially across the south. Some towns and cities not dropping much past 18, possibly even 19 degrees Celsius. So a little bit uncomfortable for some. And then during the early hours of the morning, we'll still see some quite blustery outbreaks of rain across the far north of Scotland. But mainland Scotland should mostly be dry and bright overnight. We could start to see some of those heavy thundery showers pushing through into Northern Ireland and northern parts of England during the very early hours. But across the south, it should start to brighten up. But we could see some remnants of cloud across central areas for a time, eventually clearing away as those thundery showers continue to push their way northwards. And by the afternoon in particular, there should be plenty of blue skies. But once again, some quite hot temperatures, a little warmer compared to this afternoon, particularly across central areas of England, where we could start to see temperatures push into the mid-30s. But even across the north, even where we see those cloudier skies, still temperatures in the mid-20s. So it's going to be a hot, if not very hot day for many. And then through into Wednesday, the middle part of the week, fairly similar conditions. There are still a risk of showers, northeastern parts of Scotland. Later on across southern England, there is a chance of hearing some rumbles of thunder. But for many areas, once again, plenty of fine and dry